everyone, and welcome to People Managing People. My name is Becca, and I'm the community manager here. If you haven't already plugged into the community, we are a supportive space for experienced people and culture leaders to develop and connect with other like-minded individuals. This community is a great place for you to connect with others in similar roles, learn from one another, and level up together. It's also a great place to build your confidence as you iterate through your practice and approach. And we're also here to help you develop your skills and become increasingly competent so that you can lead and manage more effectively. If you'd like to get involved, you can sign up for free at peoplemanagingpeople.com/community, and I hope to see you there. So today it is my greatest pleasure to be talking to seasoned culture and business strategist Jenn Oswald. She's one of our People Managing People experts, and she is also the head of HR at Goodtime.io, where she's launching the culture of entrepreneurship and establishing their HR, recruiting, and people strategies. She also has tons of experience helping startups and high-growth companies launch or improve their people departments. So welcome, Jenn. It's so great to have you today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. What a nice introduction.
So just to get started right off the bat, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and where you're based now?
Yeah. So, my name is Jenn Oswald. I have two little fur kids running around in my home office here. So you never know when one is going to jump on camera. So just warning everyone. Um, and I'm originally from the Midwest. In the States. I'm from Iowa originally. Um, and I live in San Francisco, California right now. So, I've lived a few different places, but San Francisco is home now. When I'm not working, I am an avid meditator, reader, explorer of parks and beaches, and daydreamer.
I love that. I'm just up the coast from you in Vancouver, Canada, and I love exploring the parks and beaches here as well. So I mentioned that you are the head of HR at
Mhm.
Goodtime.io. Could you explain a little bit more about what you do there?
Yeah, so really what I'm working on right now is building the people function. So that's HR, that's recruiting, that's culture, that's talent. It's all programs, all systems. So right now we're building a lot of the HR infrastructure. Um, and that includes like the recruiting infrastructure, you know, just basic even like strategies and processes. So a lot of that type of work, and lots of working with the employees to build programs that work for our current set in order to scale our culture.
Amazing. So I'd love to take a moment and just talk about remote working and
Hmm.
how it applies to culture.
Yeah.
So first off, do you think remote working is here to stay?
I do. I think that, well, especially because we can't seem to shake this darn coronavirus and all its variants. But I think that the majority of companies that I've seen are remote or hybrid now, and I just think it's going to become a thing of the past to be 100% in office. So I think in some form, companies are going to be either way more remote friendly than they used to be, or hybrid, or fully remote, like we're going fully remote.
You are going fully remote.
Hmm. Yep.
How has that process been with starting from deciding that all the way to how your employees have handled that change?
Yeah, I think the interesting piece is, um, people are so resilient and adaptable. Um, but one thing that's hard for most people is the gray area. So I think knowing what our plans are and how we're moving forward, uh, hopefully was like a bit of a sense of relief for people. Um, because we were headquartered in San Francisco and had a pretty large office here,
Mhm.
and really only hired a few roles outside of San Francisco. So we did have people outside of San Francisco, that were fully remote, but we didn't quite have the strategy around that. So it was more of like someone that we knew, that was remote. So, like, let's hire them there. Um, so this has been more about like really having a remote strategy. Um, and so far, I think people are happy. We announced that like in September, we would just like to know like where are you located, so we make sure we're doing all of the employee things correctly, based on the state, and we do have a couple people in Canada too. So
Nice.
yeah.
That's really exciting that you're going to this new remote model, and I'd love to know, how do you connect with your team members in this remote environment without suffering from like the so-called Zoom fatigue or
Mhm.
digital fatigue, because I know it's a real thing.
Um, you know, I can only answer that for me personally, as far as the Zoom fatigue, but I can talk a lot about how we stay connected. So, um, some days I think being on Zoom all day long is harder than others. What what keeps me from being Zoom fatigued is the fact that most of the meetings that I'm in are highly worthwhile. Um, I get Zoom fatigue when I'm in a meeting and I'm like, why am I here and what are we trying to accomplish? Um, so for me, it's really about that engagement factor. Um, so that's how I combat Zoom fatigue. I also, so we're a G Suite, based company.
Mhm.
So there's a setting in your calendar settings where you can basically shave off of 10 minutes off of every meeting. So an hour meeting is 50 minutes, 30-minute meeting I think is maybe 25 or 20. And so just enacting that setting so that there's just, even if I just have a little bit of a break,
Mhm.
from one to another where I can stand up, I can, walk and go get some more water.
Mhm.
Any of those things have helped. I've also, I have I shouldn't say it, but I have a device that connects to Amazon that plays music,
Oh, nice.
in my other room. And so usually I have my office door open, which is like my office, my workout room, my guest room, my, everything else, my reading room, so many things. Um, but I've started playing like low volume music out there, that kind of reminded me of like being in the office. And
Mhm.
so, when I remember that, that makes me happy, and I think happiness combats fatigue. Um, so those are kind of just my thoughts on Zoom fatigue. I think the way that we are staying connected is, so we have a group at Goodtime called the EIA, the Emotional Intelligence Agency,
Love
and they're a group of people. We try and have someone from every department who can be kind of plugged into the culture, what's working, what isn't. We have virtual happy hours, we have virtual coffees. We use a product called Donut that
that.
introduces people. Also has like a water cooler chat feature, which is kind of fun. Um, we uh, we use Slack a lot. and we have a very positive culture. So I think that that helps. And when we have happy hours, we post the videos in Slack when we're done. So if people weren't able to attend and they want to see a little bit of it, they can do that. Um, and then one of our like most popular things that we do is we do a new hire lunch every Monday, and everyone can come. They get to expense their lunch um, if they attend, right? and and then essentially we ask a different like kind of fun question. So like our question this last week is, when you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up? And, kind of like tell us a little bit about it. And so you just learn like really different things about people and fun things, and you find different connections. Like there was a one of our founders, I wanted to be a marine biologist when I grew up.
Oh, I was
And
interested in that
oh
too.
my gosh, yeah, and so was he. And so he like sent me a Slack on like there's a shark exhibit at one of the museums here. And so it's just like it's just it's a fun way to learn about other people.
Mhm.
Also, when I was a new hire and went through that, it was a really great way for me to see a lot of different faces and names in just like a different way to remember people. So instead of like, oh, that person's in engineering, I can remember, oh yeah, that's the person that said the burrito is their, favorite lunch. So it just gives you a more of a connection. So I just invite other people to try something like that,
Mhm.
as it has purpose, and it has meaning, and we get great feedback on it.
That's awesome. I love that. We recently started using a Slack integration called Know Your Team, which I think is maybe a little bit
Mm.
similar to Donut, and it has kind of daily stand-ups where you write in kind of what your plan for the day is, but it also often will prompt the team on different questions, like
Hmm.
what's a movie that you recently watched that was really good, or what was your first part-time job, or things like that. And I found that I've really enjoyed getting to kind of know some of my team
Hmm.
members who got hired during the pandemic, who I've never met in person, just yeah, learning a little bit more about them. So that's been good. And
Yeah.
I know you mentioned these new team member lunches.
Hmm.
So are there any other ways that you onboard employees in this remote environment?
Yeah, so we've really spiced up our onboarding program. So we have essentially a couple of things. So we try to have all of our systems talk to each other, so that when someone goes from applicant to new teammate, there's minimal work that they have to do to input themselves into the system. So there's kind of like the technology side, and then we send out a new hire email as soon as someone accepts a job, and to the entire team and to the person. So everyone is welcomed before by and people just reply all, and it's just a nice way. It's unexpected. It's the little things that go a long way. And then we have a digital onboarding, um, kind of training curriculum that is about 3 days long. Not 3 days total, but it takes people usually about 3 days to complete. And then we also have like a first day program that is led by the people team, and talking more about our business and good time by the numbers. So what we have to be, really proud of and why they're joining. Um, and then we hand them off to the team, and every team is responsible for helping the new teammate create a 30, 60, 90-day plan, so that people can feel like they're learning the right things, and also like they're moving the needle forward and being successful. And then from the people side, we do a 15-day check-in and a 45-day check-in. So really seeing, how they're doing, how they're adjusting. So the 15-day check-in is really focused on, like, is the job what you thought you were getting into, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what you're doing is then at the 45-day is like you're really measuring, okay, is it still what you thought you were getting into? Like, what's changed? What's the overall kind of mood of the new hire? I have a little theory that people, this is just my own theory. I think that people decide in their first 30 days how long they're going to stay with an organization.
Mm. Interesting.
There's no science behind that. That's just that's just my theory.
Yeah.
So it's a hypothesis. Maybe if I go back to school, I'll do that as my thesis.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, even if it's not scientific, it would go along with kind of just first impressions, how important a first impression can be.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally.
Just before we move on from focusing on remote work, what is something that you miss most about being in the office? Because I know it sounds like you're not
Mm.
about to go back.
Yeah, I mean, I just I miss those, like when you have a problem and you're just like, hey, can we just talk about this real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Or, just kind of that working side by side on something like with someone. I miss that. I
Mm-hmm.
miss just the impromptu, like, hi, how are you? I think that's for me, that's the most difficult solve for remote work is, how do you keep people connected, outside of their, team that they see. That
Mm-hmm.
reminds me, we also do a town hall every other week, and
Okay,
that's where everyone attends.
that's nice.
Um, so that is a nice way to see everyone, and most teams present each week.
Nice. Yeah, that those kind of organic connections, I miss them too. And I think at the beginning of the pandemic, people were like, how do we fix this? Let's implement more meetings. But then it becomes, okay, well, these meetings are they useful or are they not? Like what you said about how you
Hmm.
get digital fatigue when the meeting isn't super important or useful. So I think coming up with ways to find connection, whether it's like in town halls or like the new team member lunches and things like that, are great
Hmm.
alternatives, yeah, to finding
Yeah.
that connection. So let's just switch gears a little bit and talk
Yeah.
a bit about the importance of management. How do you see the role of managers in an organization?
Yeah, I think, the more someone is as a coach and a mentor, versus a manager, I think the more successful, um, probably the person, the people that work with them and the organization will be. I think, management is a space that does take a lot of finesse and a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think, really tuning into the higher EQ, people, and informal leadership, I think is probably as, if not more important than, formal titles, of, I'm a manager or something like that.
Mm-hmm. What does informal leadership look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of basic to me. It's like doing the right thing,
Mm-hmm.
um, helping people out when you see that they're struggling, checking in with others, um, modeling the way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think those are kind of like the basic things. And and staying away from kind of the like anyone can be negative if they like we could all be negative about something every day. So just trying to I don't want to do the whole like let's just be positive, but I think focusing on the good rather than honing in on the bad, um, it does a lot for leadership and also just the human psyche.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. It, kind of following along those lines, is there anything else that you base your management style on?
Um, I mean, my style, like I tend to be a bit high level and a bit hands off. So um I I tend to, I guess, base my style on if I remember to ask people what they want. I think it's my job to flex to their needs, rather than the other way around. So I think just overall, I think people like questions and they like being asked, what how do you like things? How do you like to be led? How should we handle it if there's a problem? And having that type of frank discussion before anything gets dicey, I think is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. Are there any companies in particular that you admire for their approach to HR or to people, how they do management?
Well, I really yeah, I admire Atlassian.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Asana, I think is also they're a little smaller. Um, I mean, this is a little basic maybe, but Netflix, I think that they just have done so many groundbreaking things that we're still doing today. Uh, and there are a lot of companies that I admire, but maybe I don't know as much about um, their HR, uh, practices as well. But
Mm-hmm.
certainly I'm always scoping out the Fortune top 100 places to work and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So I like reading those lists.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, kind of continuing on with talking about big companies like Netflix, Atlassian, et
Hmm.
cetera, how important is company culture in general and also like personally to you?
I mean, I think it's the number one thing, both to a company and both to me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's what keeps you with an organization. And if you're all a part of the same culture, you're speaking the same language, you're you deal with things in the same way, you have healthy conflict, you have successes, you have failures, you have safety, right? You have celebrations and you have we could have done it better. And I think that that's what culture is. So it's I do think it's the difference maker in any company. Um, and I wonder how like Atlassian I think has done a really great job of scaling their culture, and they have like they're really communicative with their employees. And so I think like communication and culture go hand in hand. So I think that that's a big part of culture too.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I know you said that you're building a culture of entrepreneurship at
Hmm.
Goodtime.
Yeah.
How do you go about building this culture of entrepreneurship, and what is a culture of entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny because I was talking to somebody today just informally, and they said I was always told when I was looking for jobs to, if someone said like we're looking for entrepreneur types, to run far away because that meant they wanted you to work like 80, 90 hours a week. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you never know what perceptions people might be coming with. So it was just really interesting. So our culture of entrepreneurship was born because we had a time in our company where we sort of had I will call it, my words, a fractured culture, where you had probably a group of people that were very disengaged and dissatisfied with things, that were very vocal. But sometimes when that happens, there's like really nothing you can do to appease that group. And I've always been of the mindset, and my mentor taught me this, is like, don't worry so much about why people go. I mean, yes, I care about, retention. I'm not saying I don't. But think about, why do people stay? And so what we've done is we've studied why people stay and what are those threads. And so what our culture of entrepreneurship is it's really built on kind of three pillars. So it's autonomy, accountability, and collaboration. So it's understanding, we have a very flat organization, and understanding what decisions can I make, and where do I need to collaborate. And if I don't collaborate, and I make a decision, I just have to own that, right? Like, I'm not always going to make the right decision unless I'm getting a lot of information, and oftentimes, we don't want a lot of bureaucracy here, so we want people to feel empowered to make decisions. And so we are doing some kind of tricky things, I would say, and tricky in, like, how do we launch that from an HR perspective, a people perspective of so impact without titles, right? So can people get more compensation? Absolutely. We have annual performance reviews, we have bonuses, we have equity, we have things like that. But we want people to grow their impact, and sometimes that can grow out, and sometimes it can grow up, and sometimes it can grow like this, and so we want to recognize people for that impact that they have in the company, and a title can't describe that. And so so we kind of put it this way, we stopped calling our leadership team, we stopped calling ourselves the executive teams, because what does an executive team do? They don't exec, right? So we're the strategy team. So my job is people strategy. And I think that's so it's more like using a title as a way to describe, like, your function or your pod area, or whatever that is, but still allowing for growth, because we don't want people to think like there's no opportunities for growth. So that's where I think people were a little scared of, is this just a way to, like, use some fancy talk so that we work harder and don't make money, more money? And that's not what it is. So it's not without challenges of figuring out, like, what does this mean? How do we translate that, and make people feel understood, and heard, right? But my question is like, it's a pretty darn good culture, I think. There's always room for iteration and improvement. So it's not a stone tablet that this is, and like, this is how it is till the end of time. But it also doesn't mean that just because, a few people don't like something, or, that's going to change as well. So I think it's just like, my question is, if you don't like the culture of entrepreneurship, and we've defined it and you still don't, see yourself here, then what type of culture do you see yourself in? Um, and I think that that's an important question that people need to ask themselves
Mm-hmm.
to really figure out, you know, you spend so much time at work, you should be happy where you are.
Totally. And how do you measure whether your employees are happy or not?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one, you, you have a lot of conversations. You build trust. I mean, we're doing those check-ins. I think you just do continual check-ins with people.
Mm-hmm.
You get to know people. You do what you say you're going to do. So that, like, again, it's like trust. Um, and then, I mean, we do like the employee net promoter score
Mm-hmm.
is our main source of measurement. Um, but we measure like our programs kind of as we go as well. So constant feedback or like I've shared before, I think like really thinking about what's our listening strategy. How do we listen?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I know you mentioned a moment ago about doing annual reviews, and I know recently on the People Managing People forum, you mentioned all the reasons kind of why people should stop doing an annual review,
Mm-hmm.
performance review.
Yep.
So I'm curious what your recommendation is for
Yeah.
organizations to replace this annual review with.
Yeah, so we want to replace the annual review, but until we do, like we need people to feel good about like this is how you grow your your compensation. So what we're really looking at, and what my suggestion would be is just a very iterative process and making sure people know if I accomplish this, then I get this.
Mm-hmm.
And so as they continue to gain more skills, gain more knowledge, whatever that may be, that they're also gaining more compensation. And I just think annual reviews are just so outdated. I mean, what, you know, sometimes what you get done in a quarter is more than some people get done in a year. So like why would I get the same, increase as someone else? I think that there's just a lot of bias
Mm-hmm.
in annual reviews and they're I've not seen very many places do them well.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so why do we keep doing them? Because, you know, in the 1950s we decided it was a great idea. We've not evolved very much in the people space in some of those instances. So I just think it's iterative. You have a feedback loop, um, and you're just continually managing people up or out, and you should just be. I mean, I think you should just be continually growing people, and then they're rewarded for that, and people that aren't working out will either find their own way to a different place that's a better fit for them, or we'll ask them to do that, and hopefully those become fewer and far between as you continue to grow the culture. So that's my ideal state. We don't have it fully baked, obviously, as to what the alternatives are, but I just think also like people associate the performance review with compensation, and so let's just look at compensation separately and do it as a reward for your impact versus a budgetary experience.
Mm-hmm. And for organizations who are looking to remove the annual performance review, do you have any advice for them on how to go about this?
Um, I think I think you have to test some different things,
Mm-hmm.
before you just completely shut it down. So I think it's like, um, what's your strategy for ensuring that people are moving in the direction of your purpose? So like, are people aligned with the mission, vision, values? And then is there a high level of accountability, or, are things lacking?
Mhm.
So I think just taking a look at those things first, so that you set yourself up for success.
Mhm.
If you move away from the performance review, you still, you need, like, we have a meeting cadence is basically how we do it. So we have daily stand-ups, we have weekly, huddles where we're solving problems, and then we have like strategy sessions, and then we'll have ad hoc, depending on the problem. So I think, like, that's what works for us, is having each team do things the same, and everything is then aligned with, our overall purpose and what we're doing. So
Mhm.
every organization is going to be different, I would say. My recommendation would be, understand your current state, what works and what doesn't, and then just, make small changes and see how they go. Um, but yeah, you do have to figure out that if the end result is getting rid of that annual performance review, how are you going to explain, how compensation works, how people grow their careers, how are you going to do that? So you got a
Mhm.
few things to figure out along the way.
Mhm. That's great. Thank you.
Hmm.
We're just almost out of time, so I wanted to end things just with a fun question. What
Okay.
is your favorite office snack?
Ooh, gosh, I'm a sucker for potato chips.
Me too.
Like, I can't help, really any form of potato is kind of my thing. So, but yeah, give me potato chips and I can't avoid them.
Do you have a favorite flavor?
I like the cracked pepper.
Ooh,
That's
yum.
my favorite, or the jalapeno. Like
Okay.
jalapeno chips are also
Hmm.
good. I like the kettle, like the real crunchy
Yeah,
chips.
me too.
I don't like the malt vinegar ones or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Those, like, make my mouth hurt a little bit.
Get that like zing in the back
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. What's your
Amazing.
favorite?
I actually do. My latest favorite is apple cider vinegar. Um,
Oh,
we have, I think it's a Canadian brand. It's called a Hard Bites. And anyways, they're really
yeah.
yummy, not too greasy, not too salty, but just the right amount. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll have to exchange, we can be potato pen pals and
Oh my
exchange our
goodness, yes.
favorite chips.
I love that. We'll talk after.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jen, for spending a bit of time with me and sharing all your insights into the world of people and culture. I really appreciate it, and I'm so excited to have you in the people managing people community as well as an expert. And to everyone listening, Jen is a part of our community, as I just said. So if you'd like to learn from her or hear more from her, you can sign up to the community at peoplemanagingpeople.com/community, and you can see her in the forum. We'll talk to you all soon. Bye.